Hey peeps, this is Sylvie Curry, Lady of Q, and I'm out here because I'm visiting one of my best friends. My baby, my fur baby, Ziggy, he's buried here. We laid him to rest about a month ago, actually a little less than a month ago, May 27th, 2018. Ziggy was my best friend. You know, as most fur babies are. He listened to me. I could rant on and on about anything, and he would just lay there and listen. He gave me great joy because he was always there, very forgiving. Even if I didn't take him with me to go someplace and he was upset that I left him at home, he would often, as soon as I walked back in the door, just be very happy to see me. Yep, that's my Ziggy, my fur baby. Why am I out here? Well, let's talk about golf carts. Anybody who knows me or knows Ziggy knows that at most barbecue competitions, Ziggy was always there with me. One of the things that he hated are golf carts. And you know that at barbecue competition, golf carts are all over the place. However, my golf cart, he grew to love. And he grew to love it because it meant that we took little ventures around the house on the golf cart, and he would sit. I had a little seat here for him, and he would sit there, and he would just hang out with me. And we'd do things like come out here and just relax, enjoy nature, communicate with nature, and I would just talk. And he listened. So he was my source of someone who was always there with me and would talk with me. If I had a rant, something bothered me, or I had something I just needed to get off my shoulders, Ziggy would listen. Yes, he would. He'd sit there and he'd look at me sometimes like, what's this woman doing? But at the same time, he would listen. He was there. So I'm out here today because I just have a few things that I want to talk about. And they are things related to barbecue. There's a holiday coming up in a little less than a week. Opportunity for all you backyard warriors to get out there and get your grills going, get your smokers going, invite family, friend over, and cook. And have a ball. And have some fun, yeah. However, there's some things that I've noticed over the last, couple of weeks. I've been watching a lot of the YouTube videos, posts on social media, posts on forums and things like that related to what are you cooking today? And some of the responses and posts are very nice. However, there are some that you just say, oh my God, they're going to be in trouble. There are some people who post things as if they had the most up-to-date knowledge and what they said was the truth and there's no doubt about it, and they get upset because people ask them questions and it should be obvious to people that blah, 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 blah. That's my rant. When I hear passionate barbecuers, pit masters, or whatever going off on people for being inquisitive or asking questions and things like that, I get concerned. Not everybody came out here knowing how to cook. We all had a learning curve. Some had a shorter one than others. Some had mentors that taught them earlier. Some have taken classes and learned something. Some are backyard warriors who aren't interested in competition. They just want to cook real good meat. But then if you are going to go on YouTube and talk about cooking barbecue and cook as if you were the source of all information, it's very important to be accurate. So here goes my rant. And actually I have a list. Okay, let me see if I can keep up with my list. Common mistakes that inexperienced pitmasters make. Common mistakes that inexperienced pitmasters make. Okay, my first one is dull knives. Inexperienced or not, you need to have a sharp knife. Investing in good quality meat, spending any time in the kitchen cooking anything, your knife should be sharp. It doesn't have to be an expensive knife. It doesn't have to be a Japanese Global or Shun or Wusthof or any of those. It just has to be a sharp knife, which is maintained for sharpness. It is common knowledge that most people get cut by dull knives than they do by sharp knives. And that being because it takes more energy to go into a dull knife to cut, and you run the risk of overshooting and cutting yourself. So get a sharp knife. Dirty grills. If you're going to show me your grill in a video, please make sure it's clean. And when I say clean, meaning that you don't have grease and creosote and all that nasty looking stuff on your grill grates or on the side of the barbecue or around it. Nasty. Cooking, even though it's heat you're using, you still can contaminate your food with a dirty grill. Nobody wants to eat on a dirty grill. Plus, all that baked on crusty grease does not taste good. It gives an off flavor to your food, so please get a clean grill. Okay, lighter fluid. If you're going to use lighter fluid, and there are many professional pitmasters out there who do use lighter fluid, but those professional pitmasters also know how to use lighter fluid. They know that before you put any meat on a grill or smoker in which you've lit the fire with lighter fluid, that you allow that lighter fluid to totally burn off before you put any meat or anything that you're going to cook on that grill. My preference is that there are a lot of alternative ways to start a fire on a grill, on a smoker, or whatever. Easiest way is with the chimney. Put some charcoal in a chimney, put some paper underneath, light it. 20 minutes later, you've got lit coals. There are a lot of products out now, including paraffin type things or paper type products, which you can put on your charcoal, light them, and it lights the charcoal. No residue, no after effects, doesn't leave your smoker smelling weird. Try those. Knife skills. If you're going to take a picture of foods you've cooked and you want to show it off because you're very proud of what you've done, please be aware that knife skills and how you cut that food is very important. If you have jagged edges or jagged strokes from the knife, if you have slices that are not similar, then it takes away from the appearance of the meat. You do better to show that food off if you had some semblance of everything being clean. That goes back to the sharp knife. clean strokes to give nice clean slices of tri-tip brisket or whatever. Okay. Temperature probes. Love them. I've got a lot of them. I use them in competitions. I use them at home. I use them for most anything that I cook that I'm curious as to where I am in the cook. There are a few things that I rely upon a temperature probe to determine doneness. And to mind coming up right now, the only two things I can think of would be something like steak, where you want to make sure that you have a rare, medium rare, well done, or whatever it is, and you want that temperature to be accurate. Chicken, where you want to make sure that you got to a safe temperature in your chicken so that it's done. Those are the two things that are most often where, temperature probe is, for temperature is important. However, there are some things which the temperature probe does not tell you that it was done. And that would be, for example, pork shoulder, pork butt, picnic pork, big old roast of pork, and brisket. A temperature probe can tell you where you are in your cook, but is not a total indicator of doneness. That temperature probe, though, can be used to check for tenderness. So that if you probe a piece of meat, a brisket or a roast, and it goes in clean, like going into room temperature butter, then you know that it's done and that it's tender. However, when I hear someone say, I know my pork butt's done when it reaches 195. I made that mistake. Made it for a lot of years when I first started barbecuing. Relying upon a number. It's not the number that counts. It's the tenderness. It's the texture of the meat. When you stick the probe in to get a temperature of a brisket or pork butt or some meats like that, just be aware that you're trying to find out where you are so that later on, if you know you're at 165, then you know, oh, okay, maybe I need to wrap this. Okay, when you hit 195, doesn't mean it's done. When you get into that range where it's near the temperatures that you associate with doneness, then you probe it and you see if you have that nice, no resistance probe going into that meat. Okay. Oh, this is where Ziggy would be just looking at me and got those eyes, and he'd be just, Mommy, what are you doing? You're sitting here just talking like crazy, and I don't understand a word you're saying. You guys may not either, but I'm still talking because Ziggy's listening to me. Storage of supplies. I'm an organization freak. Everything has to be in its place for me. Has to be clean. Where it's stored has to be clean. Has to be well taken care of. I'm OCD on that, and I know it. Okay? And I'm not going to ever ask anybody to be OCD like that with their equipment. However, when things are stored in an uncleanly, untidy environment, it leads you to believe that those pieces of equipment or whatever are dirty, nasty, just to say it bluntly. Try to maintain your equipment. You spend a lot of money on it. We spend a lot of money on this barbecue thing. Take care of your stuff. You want it to last? It's only going to last if you take care of it. Clean it off. At the end of a comp, at the end of a cook, don't just take those dirty probes and stick them back in a drawer. Wipe them off. Okay? When you have crusty stuff all over a temperature probe, that's just nasty. Wipe it off. Clean it. Airflow. It's very important to understand airflow in any cooking device, because you monitor the the temperatures in your smoker based upon having the correct airflow where enough air is coming in and you have a venting system so that air, smoke, or whatever can go out. You don't want a smoker or any cooking device like that to have dirty smoke where it's all gray, foggy looking, coming out, dirty smoke. Because that means if you have dirty smoke coming out your smoker, when you have meat in it, then you have dirty smoke on your meat, and that's going to affect the taste of your meat. Too much smoke. When is there too much smoke? I remember a few years ago I did a competition, and there was a team that was placed next to my site. A bunch of guys who obviously was their first cook-off. And they came with brand new smokers still in the box, which I watched them put together there at the competition. They came with piles of wood. They came with charcoal with mesquite, charcoal with hickory. All sorts of things. And this is just a barbecue competition. Cooking chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket. And during the cook, I watched them load little logs of wood on these little WSMs and on these char broiler type grills. And they were cooking. They were smoking. They were at a barbecue competition. They were very proud of what they did. And at the end of all the turn-ins, they did bring me a sample of some of the meats they cooked. Inedible. The smoke was so heavy that it just, And I know it was crushing for them, but I had to explain to them, and I did it nicely, that you have to be careful with how much smoke you use. You have to know what meats to use what type of woods with and how much. Yes, you look at television, you see these big old smokers at these restaurants and they're loading log after log after log in there and cooking and doing their thing. The people who are doing that know what they're doing. And they're doing it in devices which were meant to cook that way. A WSM wasn't meant to cook with logs. Chunks, yes, and a minimal number of chunks. So that when you're using a charcoal that's flavored with mesquite or hickory, and then you're throwing on that an additional hickory or mesquite or whatever type of wood, that's the problem. You know that certain things like fish require very minimal smoke. Chicken requires minimal smoke. So you have to know what woods and amounts of woods go with what you're cooking. I can't teach you that here. However, be aware of it. Look it up. Which gets me to sources of information. Just because it's on YouTube doesn't make the information correct. There's a lot of information on YouTube. There's a lot of misinformation on barbecue forums. There's a lot of misinformation that's communicated as if it were word. Be careful. Be careful what you say. I was listening to something the other day, and the guy says, really upsets me when people ask me how long do I cook my meats or what temperature do I cook my meats to. And the answer he went on to give was incorrect. And yeah, be careful. You know, I remember when I first started cooking, I remember reading in the little recipe books, cookbooks, even some of the things that people would say on some of these forums. You cook that pork butt to 195. Okay? That 195 is not a magic number. At 195, you may or may not have done this. But you will not know at 195 if you have done this unless you probe the meat. 204 on a brisket. You may or may not have done this. 208 on a brisket. You may or may not have done this. Done this is when you probe the meat, and as I said earlier, the probe goes in with little to no resistance. There is a big difference between being tender and done and being overcooked. And you have to watch that fine line. You just have to monitor your meats and know what you're doing. Have you ever gone over someone's house for a barbecue and they've got all this chicken and this big grill and they've got those charcoals going full heat, or they've got the gas turned up on high, and they take that chicken, raw chicken, and put it on the direct fire. Moments later, after that grease starts dripping down into that charcoal or to that gas grill, they've got flames. A little while later from that, they've got puffs of smoke, some black, coming off. And they're moving this meat back and forth all around that direct flame. People, there is a difference between indirect and direct fire. You have to be able to know when to move something on a direct side and then back to the indirect side. And knowing that is just based on common sense. If you've got flames and smoke and all that coming off, and your meat, especially chicken, is turning all dark and black, and the inside's still raw, then you know you spent too much time, you know that you spent too much time on the direct side, and it should have been on the indirect side. I'm not going to teach that. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. Just be aware. Just being aware is more important than anything else. Ziggy's still listening to me, so I got one more thing to rant on. I'm outside, so some of the noises are from the road up above me. Okay, here we go. One of my biggest frustrations is when I go to someone's home and they've cooked, say, a brisket, and they're passionate, and I'm passionate about barbecue, they're passionate about barbecue. They're excited. They took that leap to cook a brisket. They're excited that they want to make sure that all their guests enjoy that brisket and that it came from their heart. They slice into it, and it's tough as leather. Okay? When cooked to correct tenderness, so that's another point. We already talked about that. But please do not ask me if I enjoyed that brisket and wasn't it good. I'm not going to be harsh with you, and I have to hold it in, but what I will say is a couple of suggestions on how it could have tasted better, and some things that maybe they could do the next time to make it better. But I'm saying this to say, if you invite anyone who knows how to cook, barbecue or anything, be careful of what you ask them, because you might not get the answer that you wanted. Okay? Okay. I'm out here. And It's a great place to be. It's relaxing. And this is where my Ziggy, my fur baby, is. And I spent some time with him, which I love to do. And I do miss him. He listened to me, and I hope you guys did too. One of my rants. This is Sylvie Curry, Lady of Q, and I'm in one of those moods. Take care, people. Goodbye.